Hello everyone, welcome to Greatish Short Stories with Jason and Abby. This is our third episode. The first two were not recorded. They were a private session, exclusive members only. I don't remember what stories we read other than they were fun. Let's get to it. What story should we read today?
Can we read the horse one?
The horse
I think
one.
that we considered it, and then we decided to do the garden party instead.
We did the garden and the old people going to Florida.
Yeah, I do remember
which was
Florida.
Very memorable, even though it was only 3 months ago. It was the golden honeymoon, wasn't it? Yeah. That was amazing.
Which is cute because we were on our honeymoon.
That is pretty cute, as we know. Horses. Out of the 50 stories in this book,
Here.
there's a haunted house.
I saw that. It's a pretty short one.
How do you know?
Because I look at the page numbers.
Oh,
and then
that makes sense. Yeah.
A good man is hard to find.
Good man is hard to find by somebody.
Flannery O'Connor.
Okay. This is a list of...
I promise you there was a horse.
I know there was a horse story, but where is he?
Was it the Jockey? Was that what I was thinking of?
Maybe The Jockey by Carson McCullers. But that'll be about gambling. I thought there was a horse one too.
Didn't we actually read the horse one, and it was like a stolen horse, and it was little
it was
kids?
about a kid. Yeah. Oh, it's a beautiful white horse. There
Yeah.
we go. Yeah, that was fun.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then they walked it back.
We did read that one already.
He stole the horse, and they rode it a bunch,
Okay.
and then he had to give it back.
That was episode 2.5.
2.5.
Yeah.
What was episode 1, the Golden
I
Honeymoon?
don't know. What's the Evening Sun? How many pages is that? Oh, that's a lot of pages. Never
Do you want to
mind.
read The Jockey then?
Yeah, sure.
Because horses, why not? Alright, only 6 pages. Should be a short episode.
It smells
Hopefully.
like a book.
That's good. Is paper, and it's real.
Okay, I'm listening.
Alright, we got The Jockey by Carson McCullers. It starts off, The Jockey. You know, sometimes with short stories, you wonder, hey, when will the title come into play? And this one, it's just there.
It's right up front.
It's The Jockey about the jockey. Alright, The Jockey.
Mm-hmm.
Title and first sentence. The jockey came to the doorway of the dining room. Then, after a moment, stepped to one side and stood motionless, with his back to the wall. So where is he? He came to the doorway of the dining room. Is there a door?
I feel like
Where did he step to the side? Is he in the dining room?
Well, you
or
haven't
to the
read
other?
ahead. You're only on the
Okay,
first
okay.
sentence.
All
Also,
right, true.
I feel like your
I read
cadence,
too much
Yeah,
into this.
yeah.
Okay,
It's just
it was very dramatic.
here's how the first.
But I'm just saying, it's the title of the story.
Yeah.
And it says the
Because
jockey.
he's the main character.
But he came to the doorway
Okay.
of the dining room. Then, after a moment, stepped to one side. Where did he go? And he stood motionless, with his back to the wall. Oh, here it is.
So he came into the dining room.
Oh, no, he didn't. He's not in the dining room. He's in front of the dining room.
Will you please
Alright,
read the second
alright.
sentence?
You can no reading ahead. The room was crowded, as this was the 3rd day of the season, and all the hotels in the town were full.
Why are you pausing so long?
And it's just because. In the dining room, bouquets of August roses scattered their petals on the white table linen, and from the adjoining bar came a warm, drunken wash of voices. The jockey waited with his back to the wall, as he was, and scrutinized the room with pinched, crepey eyes. Crepey?
Creepy.
Crepey eyes.
Okay, think of a crepe. Think of a stack of crepes, you know?
How
and
is his
how it's like kind
eyes?
of wrinkled.
Okay. Oh, he has a wrinkled face. He has crepey eyes. Nice. CREPY. All right. He examined the room until at last his eyes reached a table in a corner diagonally across from him. I still don't know where he is, so why does it matter?
Did you know that this is an excerpt from The New Yorker and The Ballad of the Sad Cafe? So it very
so it's
well
even a
could
short.
be a cafe.
But he's in the dining room.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if cafe is
Okay,
a dining room.
read normally.
All right, The New Yorker. This is my normal. Excuse me. As he watched. The table diagonally from him, at which 3 men were sitting. As he watched, the jockey raised his chin and tilted his head back to one side. His dwarfed body grew rigid, and his hands stiffened so that the fingers curled inward like gray claws. Like, I know it's just because he's short, but it makes him sound like a little gremlin, and that's not very nice. Yep. Tense against the wall of the dining room, he watched and waited in this way. He was wearing a suit of green Chinese silk that evening, tailored precisely in the size of a costume outfit for a child. Oh boy. The shirt was yellow, the tie striped with pastel colors. He had no hat with him, and wore his hair brushed down in a stiff, wet bang on his forehead. His face was drawn, ageless and gray. There were shadowed hollows at his temples, and his mouth was set in a wiry smile. After a time he was aware that he had been seen by one of the 3 men he had been watching, but the jockey did not nod. He only raised his chin still higher, and hooked the thumb of his tense hand in the pocket of his coat. The 3 men at the corner table were a trainer, a bookie, and a rich man. The trainer was Sylvester, a large, loosely built fellow with a flushed nose and slow blue eyes. The bookie was Simmons. The rich man...
That's it. That's all we know about Simmons.
They don't care about Simmons.
We don't even know what a bookie
Simmons.
is.
No, but you don't know what a bookie is? The bookie is the money dude. Anyway. I feel like this is a hit on the jockey, because they did not describe him very nicely.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on, the rich man was the owner of a horse named Seltzer, bubbly, which the jockey had ridden that afternoon. The 3 of them drank whiskey with soda, and a white-coated waiter had just brought on the main course of the dinner. It was Sylvester who first saw the jockey. He looked away quickly, put down his whiskey glass, and nervously mashed the tip of his red nose with his thumb. "It's Bitsy Barlow," he said, "standing over there across the room, just watching us." "Oh, the jockey," said the rich man. He was facing the wall, and he had half turned his head to look behind him. "Ask him over." "God, no," Sylvester said. "He's crazy," Simmons said. The bookie's voice always flat.
He's crazy. He's crazy.
Crazy.
He's
Simmons.
crazy.
He's crazy.
He's crazy.
He's crazy.
No inflection whatsoever. Flat.
He's crazy.
He's crazy.
He's crazy. Simmons said.
He's
The
crazy.
bookie's voice was flat and without inflection, which we did not know before we said it. He's crazy.
He's crazy.
He's crazy. He had the face of a born gambler, carefully adjusted. The expression, a permanent deadlock between fear and greed. Nice. "Well, I wouldn't call him that exactly," said Sylvester. "I've known him a long time. He was okay until about 6 months ago. But if he goes on like this, I can't see him lasting out another year. I just can't." What happened in Miami," said Simmons. "What?" asked the rich man. Sylvester glanced across the room at the jockey and wet the corner of his mouth with his... Why everything red. His red, fleshy tongue. Accident. A kid got hurt on the track, broke a leg and a hip. He was a particular pal of Bitsy's. Irish kid, not a bad rider either.
Okay, so Sylvester is the trainer guy.
Alright, yeah. Sylvester is trainer.
I feel like he's
Simmons
a little
is
bit
bookie.
more like not redneck, but
Oh, I understand. He's not as refined.
He's not a refined man.
Whereas, who's the rich dude? Rich dude is...
He's just rich man.
He's rich man. He's just seltzer owner.
Oh.
But what did they call it? Well, who's the dude? Oh,
he's just a rich man.
Honestly, they said the rich man said. They haven't given him a name yet.
No.
The jockey doesn't have a name either, does he?
No. No, he does, because they said...
No, they said it was Bitsy Barlow as the dude who got injured. He's mad about... So far, we got 3 characters. They're mad at Bitsy Barlow. No, the
Bitsy Barlow is the jockey.
Dude who got... No, he's the dude that got injured.
Oh.
No, it is Bitsy Barlow.
Yeah. Okay, next.
Oh, the dude who got injured was a pal of Bitsy's.
Yeah.
I understand. So he's Bitsy. Next page.
Little.
That's a pity, said the rich man. Yeah, they were particular friends, Sylvester said. You'd always find him up in Bitsy's hotel room. They would be playing rummy or else lying on the floor, reading the sports page together. Well, those things happen, said the rich man. Simmons cut into his beefsteak. It wasn't a pork steak.
Nope, it was a beefsteak.
It was a beefsteak. He held his fork prongs downward on the plate and carefully piled on mushrooms with the blade of his knife. He's crazy, he repeated.
No inflection.
He's crazy.
He's crazy.
He's crazy. He gives me the creeps. All the tables in the dining room were occupied. There was a party at the banquet table in the center, and green-white August moths had found their way in from the night and fluttered about the clear candle flames. 2 girls wearing flannel slacks and blazers walked arm in arm across the room into the bar. From the main street outside came the echoes of holiday hysteria. See, I gotta read ahead to know what accent to do.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, here we go. They claim that in August, Saratoga is the wealthiest town per capita in the world. Sylvester turned to the rich man. What do you think? I wouldn't know, said the rich man. It may very well be. Daintily, Simmons wiped his greasy mouth with the tip of his forefinger. How about Hollywood and Wall Street? Wait, said Sylvester. He's decided to come over here. The jockey had left the wall and was approaching the table in the corner, diagonal corner. He walked with a prim strut, swinging out his legs in a half circle with each step, his heels biting smartly into a red velvet carpet on the floor. In the dining room? On the way over, he brushed against the elbow of a fat woman in white satin at the banquet table. He stepped back and bowed with dandified courtesy, his eyes quite closed. When he had crossed the room, he drew up a chair and sat at a corner of the table, between Sylvester and the rich man, without a nod of greeting or a change in his set gray face. Had dinner? Sylvester asked. Some people might call it that. The jockey's voice was high, bitter, clear. Sylvester put his knife and fork down carefully on his plate. The rich man shifted his position, turned sideways in his chair and crossing his legs. Turning sideways in his chair and crossing his legs. He was dressed in a twill riding pants, unpolished boots, and a shabby brown jacket. This was his outfit day and night in the racing season, although he was never seen on a horse. Simmons went on with his dinner. Like a spot of seltzer water? Asked Sylvester, or something like that. The jockey didn't answer. He drew a gold cigarette case from his pocket and snapped it open. Inside were a few cigarettes and a tiny gold penknife. He used the knife to cut a cigarette in half. When he had lighted his smoke, he held up his hand to a waiter passing by the table. Kentucky bourbon, please.
Hi, clear voice.
Kentucky bourbon, please.
Clear.
Kentucky bourbon, please.
That didn't sound very bitter.
Kentucky bourbon, please.
That's overkill.
Now listen, kid.
Don't kid me.
Be reasonable. You know you got to behave reasonable. The jockey drew up the left corner of his mouth in a stiff jeer. His eyes lowered to the food spread out on the table. Instant, he looked up again. As a jeer. Was it up or down? I lifted it. Oh, I went down. How do you lift the left corner of your mouth up?
Like this.
Ow. It's like a millimeter. You can't.
It's a gross face.
It's
It's like
like a.
it's like a gritty smile, but only half.
But okay. No, it doesn't work. Anyway, I don't know how he did that. Also, he cut his cigarette in half, and I don't know why. So he had two?
No, that's just probably the fashion.
I don't understand.
Anyway.
The hidden meaning. I don't know. Behave reasonable. The jockey drew up the left corner of his mouth in a stiff jeer. His eyes lowered to the food spread out on the table, but instantly he looked up again. Before the rich man was a fish casserole.
Ew.
Before he was a fish casserole. Now he's potatoes.
No, before the rich man was a fish casserole.
Not before he was, before the rich man was.
In front of the rich man.
Before he was a fish casserole, now he's cream sauce. I'm just going to read it like that. Before the rich man was a fish casserole, baked in a cream sauce and garnished with parsley. Sylvester had ordered eggs Benedict. But he was eating steak. No, that was Simmons.
That was Simmons.
Oh, I understand.
Get your
We need to
characters
know
right.
what food they are. So, Simmons is a steak, the rich man is fish casserole, and Sylvester is eggs Benedict.
What kind of diner is this?
I don't know. But there was asparagus, fresh buttered corn, and a side dish of wet black olives. Those are the other characters that we haven't been introduced yet.
Okay.
Uh-huh. Oh, another character. Oh, wait. This is the jockey.
Okay.
A plate of French fried potatoes was in the corner of the table before the jockey. He didn't look at the food again, but kept his pinched eyes, his crepey eyes, on the centerpiece of full-blown lavender roses. I don't suppose you remember.
Okay, but believable.
I don't suppose you remember a certain person by the name of McQuire, he said. Now listen, said Sylvester. The waiter brought the whiskey, and the jockey sat fondling the glass with his small, strong, calloused hands.
Okay.
Wrist was a gold link bracelet that clinked against the table edge. What is the table made out of? Is the table metal?
Oh.
It must be metal. It can't be wood. I don't know how it would clink against wood.
Anywho.
After turning the glass between his palms, it didn't consent to that. The
Jason.
jockey suddenly drank the whiskey neat in 2 swallows. He set down the glass sharply. No! I don't suppose your memory is that long and extensive, he said. Sure enough, Bitsy, said Sylvester. What makes you act like this? You hear from the kid today? I received a letter, the jockey said. It's like Pinocchio. I'm doing a Pinocchio.
I don't know why.
I'm a real boy. The certain person we were speaking about was taken out from the cast on Wednesday. One leg is 2 inches shorter than the other one. That's all. Sylvester clucked his tongue and shook his head. I realize how you feel. Do you? The jockey was looking at the dishes on the table. His gaze passed from the fish casserole to the corn, and finally fixed on the plate of fried potatoes.
Mm-hmm.
His face tightened, and he quickly looked up again. A rose shattered. A rose shattered? A rose shattered? How?
Shattered?
He looked up so hard at the flowers that a rose shattered.
Wait, read the sentence.
No. All right, here we go. Okay. Do you? The jockey was looking at the dishes on the table. His gaze passed from the fish casserole to the corn, which are the people, and finally fixed on the plate of fried potatoes, which is himself. His face tightened, and he quickly looked up again, which is towards the centerpiece. A rose shattered. He stared at it so hard, it exploded.
Okay, and?
And he picked up one of the petals, bruised it between his thumb and forefinger, and put it in his mouth. Well, those things happen, said the rich man. The trainer and bookie had finished eating, but there was food left on the serving dishes before their plates. The rich man dipped his buttery fingers in his water. He was eating casserole. Why is his fingers buttery? In his water
Maybe
glass.
He
was he eating it by hand?
He was eating corn, you know?
No, he was eating casserole. Did he eat his casserole with his fingers and wiped?
Maybe his fingers are just generally buttery.
That's possible. Anyway, this doesn't even make sense. The rich man dipped his buttery fingers in his water glass and wiped them with his napkin. Well, said the jockey, doesn't somebody want me to pass them something? Or maybe perhaps you desire to reorder? Another hunk of beefsteak, gentlemen, or... Please, said Sylvester, be reasonable. Why don't you go upstairs? Yes, why don't I? The jockey said. His prim voice had risen higher, and there was about it the sharp whine of hysteria. Yes, why don't I go up to my goddamn room and walk around and write some letters and go to bed like a good boy? Why don't I just... He pushed his chair back, and got up. Oh, foo, he said. Foo to you. I want a drink.
Hold on, let me see this page. Is that really what it says?
His prim voice had risen higher, and there was about it the sharp whine.
Oh, foo, he said. Foo to you.
Hysteria.
I want to... Okay, anyway, read on.
No, I wasn't... I'm not going to bleep it. If that's what it says.
I know. I just... He really said foo.
He said, oh, foo.
Okay, what did Sylvester say?
I want a drink. All I can say is, it's your funeral, and said Sylvester, you know what it does to you. You know well enough. All right. The jockey crossed the dining room and went into the bar. He ordered a Manhattan, and Sylvester watched him stand with his heels pressed tight together, his body hard as a soldier's, holding his little finger out from the cocktail glass and sipping the drink slowly. He's crazy, said Simmons, like I said. Sylvester turned to the rich man. If he eats a lamb chop, you can see the shape of it in his stomach for an hour afterward. He can't sweat things out of him anymore. He's 112 and a half. He's gained 3 pounds since we left Miami. A jockey shouldn't drink, said the rich man. The food don't satisfy him like it used to, and he can't sweat it out. If he eats a lamb chop, you can watch it tooching out in his stomach, and it don't go down. You can watch it tooching out in his stomach, and it don't go down.
Okay.
T-O-O, ching.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. The jockey finished his Manhattan. He swallowed, crushed the cherry in the bottom of the glass with his thumb, then pushed the glass away from him. The two girls in blazers were standing at his left, their faces turned towards each other. And at the other end of the bar, two touts had started an argument about which was the highest mountain in the world. Everyone was with somebody else. There was no other person drinking alone that night. The jockey paid with a brand new $50 bill and didn't count the change. He walked back to the dining room and to the table at which the three men were sitting, but he did not sit down. "No, I wouldn't presume to think your memory is that extensive," he said. He was so small that the edge of the tabletop reached almost to his belt. That's just a short table. And when he gripped the corner with his wiry hands, he didn't have to stoop. Maybe he's just short. "No, you're too busy gobbling up dinners and dining rooms. You're too..." "Honestly," begged Sylvester, "you got to behave reasonable." "Reasonable! Reasonable!" The jockey's gray face quivered, then set in a mean, frozen grin. He shook the table, but he didn't have to lean over. He shook the table so that the plates rattled, and for a moment it seemed that he would push it over. But suddenly he stopped. His hand reached out toward the plate nearest him, and deliberately he put a few French fried potatoes in his mouth. He chewed slowly, his upper lip raised, and he turned and spat out the pulpy mouthful on the smooth red carpet which covered the floor. "Libertines," he said, and his voice was thin and broken. He rolled the world in his mouth, as though it had a flavor and substance that gratified him. "You libertines," he said again, and turned and walked with his rigid swagger out of that dining room. Sylvester shrugged one of his loose, heavy shoulders, not both, just one. The rich man sopped up some water that had been spilled on the tablecloth, and they didn't speak until the waiter came to clear away. The end. And that's Greatish Stories with Jason and Abby.
You
libertines!
What is libertine?
I don't know. I guess that's not a very satisfactory ending if you don't know the word liberty.
I think the jockey was just hungry, and they were making fun of him for being hungry.
He was totally a leprechaun.
What?
No, go back to his description. He's wearing, like, green. He's small.
Oh.
And he drinks. He's a leprechaun.
I was thinking he was you-know-who. Because he had a high, clear, bitter voice.
You mean like Voldemort?
Yeah.
Did you just call him you-know-who?
Yeah.
You can't say his name.
I can.
Oh my goodness. His
I
name is...
didn't want
Say his name!
I didn't want to offend anyone.
Say his name! Voldemort.
No.
Lord Voldemort.
We'll be tracked.
Uh-oh. We'll see if there's ever a second story.
The second story?
Yeah. Well, I guess it's the fourth story.
It was the third story.
This was the third story.
Mm-hmm.
You mean there might not be a third one?
There might not be a third what?
Story. Because this is the first story. That's the third story. So is there going to be a
Third
fourth
of what?
story or a second story?
Second of what?
The stories. And the things. What are we going to do?
There'll be a fourth one.
But is there going to be a second one?
There already has been a second one.
I see. That's good. But what about the third one?
You liberty!